Okay, you're good.
All right.
Well,
Get the lights on.
oh no, I have no gavel. I'll just clap my hands. Good evening, and I want to welcome you to the Township Committee meeting, Bedminster Township, for October 1st, 2018. It is, we have our entire committee with us tonight. Oh, are we all on?
Make sure your red light's on.
Well, I think I'm
You're hot.
hot. Plus, I don't need the mic.
It's radio lingo.
I'm loud.
That's radio lingo, right?
I'm loud.
You want one?
We had the guy come in to correct the crackling noise and...
Oh. Okay.
Where does that mic go? On the table.
The one the
The
chief had?
chief's on here.
Oh. Can we have one? I know we have an extra one.
No, he doesn't need it, it's just...
Just yell. Yell over.
All right, well, to officially start the meeting, can we have the Open Public Meetings Act statement?
Yes, sir. Adequate notice of this meeting of the Township Committee was sent to the Courier News in Somerville and to the Burnsville News in Whippany to all subscribers, and also posted here at the Municipal Building as of January 8th, 2018.
I will invite you all to join us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we have two sets of meeting minutes to review and hopefully approve. They are both from our September 17th meeting, our regular agenda and our executive session. Any comments or questions? If not, can I take a motion?
Motion to approve the meeting minutes from September 17th.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Permits and raffles, Bedminster Charities, River Road Park. That's October 27th, 2018, 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. on-premise 50/50. I believe that's our Fall Fest. Homeless Solutions, an event that'll be held at the Hamilton Farm Golf Club, October 15th, 2018, 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. and on-premise merchandise. A social affair permit, Sister to Sister Inc. That's October 14th, 1 p.m. to 5 p.m., Fiddler's Elbow Country Club. And, well, you want to hit the last one separately?
Yes, please.
Okay. Any comments or questions on the first four? If not, I'll take a motion.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
And the fourth one happens to be a fireworks permit application, Trump National Golf Club. The event will be held on October 13th, 2018. I believe that's a Saturday at 9:15 p.m. And do we have a representative here to come on up? There's a microphone up there that's hopefully hot with no crackling in it. Identify yourself for the audio recording. And
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, community members. My name is Ralph Totten. I'm Director of Security at Trump National Golf Club.
all right, just give us a quick overview of what the fireworks are about.
Sure.
Anything that's unusual as opposed to previous years and previous events.
There's nothing unusual. The fireworks are for a charity event by Main Street. I don't know if you're familiar with
Yep.
that. Equine therapy for disabled people.
Yep.
So they're looking to make some money at the club on that date, and as part of it, we're going to have the fireworks display for them.
Chief, have you been involved in any review of this?
I reviewed it. It's a different launch area than we're accustomed to, so everything's all right. It's really contained on the property itself, so there's no traffic concerns or anything like that.
And did Tom Anderson get a chance to?
Yes, the fire official, in fact, I just handed Mr. Totten
okay.
permit from the fire, as far as the fire official is concerned, is all as well.
Comments or questions from the guys?
Typical start and end date, or end time?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And if we continue to have the rain, it's hard to have a fire hazard. All right, if there's no other questions, can I get a motion?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Totten, have a good night. Thank you for coming out. Twice every meeting, we invite members of the public at the beginning, once at the beginning, which will be right now, and once at the end. Come forward. You can come up to that podium. Please state your name your address for the audio recording, and if you have anything to share with us tonight. Seeing none, we'll move on to monthly reports by our subcommittees, and we'll start with Mr. Stevenson.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, everybody. Since our last meeting, I attended a Jehovah's Vanderveer House meeting, at which time, you recall, Stacia McDonough had previously come to us about doing a program with generals and veteran heroes on flags, and we thought it'd be a nice idea to hook Stacia up with the JVH, see that there was some sort of dovetail the two causes. So they're going to be speaking in the days to come, so hopefully that can come together. The folks there continue to do really good work. They're working very hard. Obviously, they're looking at their programming. I think I had mentioned last time that they're looking to perhaps scale back a little bit, keep and not have the doors open as much as they've used to be. Of course, they've got a certain minimum open times per year that they've got to maintain, but they're working on November 24th and 25th, a program, a weekend journey through the past, which is a neat thing. Saturday 10 to 5, Sunday 12 to 4. Encourage folks to get out and see that. And then, of course, the premier event is Colonial Christmas, and that's going to be coming up for, and the weekend journey through the past, October. Colonial Christmas, I believe, is November 24th, 25th, and then 12/1, and then that weekend, 12/1, 12/2, they made a request to have a police officer on site for 12/1. I'm going to confirm the date because that's a Saturday, and in the years past they've had it on a Friday with the children, so I'll make that inquiry. But I understand from Judy that an off-duty officer could be hired and paid for by the organization, and so they put a request in for that. So I'll work with Chief to get that scheduled and notify the JVH folks what that's going to cost. And then the other thing that I wanted to report back to you on is a maintenance item. As we know that the lease provides, and I've been reminded, and I've been asked to come back and advise that the lease requires that the township care for the outside structure of the house. They believe that it's in need of a paint job. So they're soliciting bids. I would ask John, when they get those bids, if they could come back to you, and if you could run your eyes across it to see what you think. And we'll take it from there. Right now there's no action item being requested, but they're sort of putting it up on the radar that the house is in need of a paint job. And I believe that's it for now.
Thank you very much. Mr. Hickey.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening. One item that this committee gave to Stacy and I several months ago was the pony farm, looking into remediation. I know the house in some state of disrepair. We had a friendly contractor come out and take a look at the roof, with a slate roof beyond its useful life. Contractor quoted us approximately $15,000 in order to replace it. There are a number of other issues that would have to be addressed in the house. We will work to get you some rough estimate numbers over the course of the next several weeks and then come together with a package, and then this committee can decide how they want to move forward. But just wanted to give you a status update on our homework assignment on that one. Stacy, I don't know if there's anything else you wanted to add.
No, that's perfect. That's exactly where we are. We just wanted to let you know we didn't, we're getting information as we can, and just wanted to give you an update.
Is that replacing the slate roof with the slate roof, or replacing the slate roof with
Very good question, Larry. Thank you.
regular roof?
Taking the slate roof off and replacing it with an asphalt roof.
Okay.
Yes, it would be too expensive to do the slate, in all honesty.
All right.
And that's it. Thank you.
Jacobs.
Well, we have a big announcement from the Environmental Commission, but Judy, I see you also have this identified under the Administrator's
Talk about
Report.
it now.
You want to do it now?
Sure.
Okay, so from the Environmental Commission, we have an announcement, and we've got two folks from the Environmental Commission, the Chair, Renee Moreski, and Tim Walter, who are here to tell us some breaking news of relatively significant and good news.
Well, you guys all know me, Renee Moreski, Chair of the Environmental. This is Tim Walter, one of our fabulous people on the committee, and I'm going to let him give you guys the good news.
Well, hello all. Yes, we have good news. How often do somebody comes up here and says, we have money to give? But we do. We heard back from the state of New Jersey. I had come before you maybe a year ago and discussing electric vehicle charging stations. The state had a program. which is going to be funded through the Volkswagen Settlement Fund. That money's finally becoming available. A lot of help from Judy, thank you. We had to fill out the application again, but we got a letter from the state of New Jersey, and they said, congratulations, your town has been approved for an It Pays to Plug in New Jersey Vehicle Grant in the amount of $30,000. So that's excellent.
Very good.
So now we have our next step. We're going to get a formal letter from them, and then we'll go back to Sun Cycle, who is the contractor, actually installed all the solar equipment behind the township buildings. So we're going to work with them. We're going to get an updated bid, quote, whatever we want to call it, and then I'll come back to you guys with, final numbers and what it's going to involve and all, and then we can decide if we want to do it or not. This isn't a, obligation. This is we'll have to decide later. But it sounds like
It's an opportunity.
And Tim, just for a reminder, the first bid that came in, what was that amount for?
$29.90.
$29.9. So the
Coincidence?
grant, at this point, unless the bid changes, the project is completely paid for by the grant.
That's great.
So that would be,
Yes.
how many, I forget, how many charging stations?
I think
Is it
it's
six?
Yeah.
It was six
Wow.
Yeah,
stations.
single station.
And,
great work.
we talked about, when Tim first identified this program at EC and brought it to Renee's attention, and there was discussion here at the EC, and as the liaison, we talked about it. We don't have, right now, the municipality does not have municipal electric vehicles, but attending all the league functions, we know that it's coming. Other towns have gone, and let's face it, you can't have your vehicles unless you've got a way to charge them. So this certainly is the future, and the anticipation is that the charging station will be available for vehicles that the town purchases and the town uses, as well as residents who are coming here for a brief couple of minutes of doing municipal business. A charging station right here. So
Chief, I think you'd be
great.
hard pressed to find a speed that you can't out-accelerate with an electric car.
And Tim is ready to take you out in his to show you how fast you can go.
I said acceleration, I didn't say exceeding the speed limit.
I also want to say thank you to Colin. Colin was the chairperson on the meeting. He helped out a lot as well, getting this program. So both Renee and Colin, I want to thank, and Judy. So
All right.
there's a lot of
Terrific.
thanks to her.
And thank you, Tim, for shepherding this through.
Yeah.
And Ray, for your leadership, thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, talk about skating to where the puck is going. You guys did it once again as the EC, so thank
He
you.
did it twice, because they had to update the paperwork. So he actually did it twice.
All right. Well, thanks. We'll keep it posted.
Okay.
Thanks,
All right.
great work.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Great job.
Continuing on with subcommittee chair reports, Land Use Board, Mayor, I'm sure you want to talk about, you've got your subcommittee that is still looking at master plan issues. The farmers market, so since we met last time, these two guys came, our farmers market house band. They made their second appearance. That was 2 weeks ago, and once again, they were fantastic. Played from about 10:30 to about 1 o'clock.
They will be at Fall Fest.
And they'll be at Fall Fest, so they'll continue their role as the house band for the Farmers Market and Fall Fest, so that was great. Once again, reminder, Farmers Market is going all the way through October, so every Saturday, still through October. So the signs, the big banners that cross the roads still say September, because we can't get up there and change it to October, but it is in fact, the Farmers Market's going every Saturday through the end of October, and last day will obviously coincide with Fall Fest. STAB, you're supposed to have a STAB meeting this week. John and I discussed postponing it to look at some of the contract issues regarding the sewer agreements with EPAC Gladstone, which we will continue to work on. And Mira, that's my presentation.
Very good. Santucci.
Thank you, Mayor. Speaking of Fall Fest, we had our meeting this past week on Tuesday night. Fall Fest, for the record, is October 27th on Saturday. That's going to be the very last day of the farmers market, so everybody will kind of come get their last farmers market. I'm sure there'll be pumpkins somewhere. The planning's going really well. Judy and the team, they're doing a great job. We're way ahead, I think.
Yeah, going really well.
Going really, really well, and the team is just doing a great job. So just a reminder, and that's all I have for
Great.
tonight. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. I do want to mention something here because it has become public, and Colin and I were at the last meeting of the trustees of the Clarence Dillon Public Library, and some kind of bittersweet news, and that longtime administrator director Andy Putnam has announced his retirement, and I know Jackie out there knows all about it, and it's a tough one for the library because one of the first, before I even got on this committee, Mayor Holtaway asked me to sit on the board of trustees for the Clarence Dillon Library. That was when they were recovering from a couple bad directors and some bad experiences, and I know we had a fellow that Pro Libra brought in who did a marvelous job trying to right the ship. And I remember being there for the selection of Sandy, and Sandy was a kind of he still is, but is a different cat in that all the candidates at the time, all the candidates that everybody thought about were people out of libraries, people with librarian experience, library backgrounds. And Sandy came in as kind of a fellow, an executive, somebody had a business, but he had a passion, has a passion for all things library. And all of us kind of scratched our head and said, gee, I wonder if this executive can come in and really dig into a library. And I got to say, 10 years he's done an amazing job, just an amazing job. The trustees cited him with the mission of turning it into a community center, and he's got an amazing staff, and he's done amazing work with that staff. We're no longer, the Clarence Dillon Public Library is no longer just a repository of books. It is a meeting place. It is a place where people meet to play cards. It's got a it's got a cafe, so it's kind of like Borders or Starbucks. And they've got they're planning a nook, reading room that they're renovating that will make it even more inviting. And it's really taken our little library into the 21st century. And it's really been due to Sandy's leadership and his staff, which has done, again, a marvelous job supporting him and carrying out. So it's sad after 10 years that he's going to be retiring from that job, although we're hoping to keep him on to do some programming and help us out. But we will be looking for a new library director over at Clarence Dillon. So if you get a chance to get over to Clarence Dillon before the end of the year, stop in Sandy's office, tell him hello, and say thank you for all the great work that he's done. And as Larry mentioned, Land Use Board, we do have our Master Plan Subcommittee that is moving slowly. We are hoping in the coming weeks to maybe come out with some announcements on that. But that's all I have for the time being. Ms. Sullivan, Administrator's Report, or what's left of it.
Yes, sir. So CFO Stern asked me to remind the Township Committee that normally this time of year we're getting ready to roll over our bond anticipation note. That's usually done the first meeting in November. Last year, for the first time, we took that bond anticipation note and we funded it ourselves through some extra funds we had in the sewer utility. So the interest that we paid on that bond anticipation note, instead of giving it to a local bank that would normally bid, the different banks would bid on the note, we paid it to ourselves. And she just wanted me to reach out to you and remind you that it was coming, and as long as you were okay with it, we would like to do that again.
Okay.
It comes to about $8,000-9,000 we end up giving to the sewer utility in interest, but rather to pay ourselves than to pay a local bank. So that will be coming. You'll see that before you the first meeting in November. And just the ban, which last year was around $725,000, this year it's down to $455,000. So we are paying it off at a nice rate. Personnel policy, I met with our subcommittee, Colin and Stacy, this past week to finalize some of the changes which you will see coming up in Resolution 2018-083. There is a synopsis of the changes in that resolution to our personnel policy. 95% of the changes are requests from the JIF, our insurance company, it comes from their attorneys, and we did have discussion with our labor attorney to review those changes. He has done so and signed off on them. But these major changes, they are listed there. I'm not going to go through them now, but they are requirements from the JIF. There are a few minor, we call them housekeeping measures, that are listed at the top of that summary sheet, and they're very minor. So you'll see that coming before you shortly. That is a renewal process that we do every 2 years with the JIF. And that's about all I have at this time.
All right, thank you very much. Discussion of introduced ordinances, we don't have any. Introduction of ordinances, we don't have any. Public hearing of ordinances, we don't have any. We do have some resolutions on the consent agenda. So if anybody has any questions or comments about the consent agenda, if not, I'll take a motion.
Move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
This will be a roll call vote. Mr. Stevenson?
Aye.
Mr. Hickey?
Aye.
Mr. Jacobs?
Aye.
Ms. Mancusi?
Aye.
Mayor Parker?
Aye.
Thank you.
Resolutions. We have two, and the first one is Resolution 2018-082. That's the extension of the distribution license for Colonial Liquors. And Judy, do you want to kind of give us some background?
Yeah, this is rather not run-of-the-mill resolution. We have 4 liquor licenses here in Bedminster. 2 are plenary retail licenses, which are restaurants. One is a club license, which is Fiddler's Elbow. We have 2 golf licenses, which are the 2 big golf clubs that is managed by the state. And then we have 1 distribution license, which is a liquor store. The liquor store license, unfortunately, the owner of the liquor store was a single individual, and they passed away in late August. So now and there was no will. So the family is left to put everything together. They're trying to keep the license valid. So there's an extension form they had to file with Bedminster Township, which they have done. They filed all the proper paperwork with Bedminster, and then we'll be sending it to the state. There's a small fee they pay to extend that license, during which time all the members of the family that are now going to run the business have to go through a background check and processing through the police department, as we normally do with the normal license holder. But now these are all people that have not been holding the license before. So that process is still ongoing. So this is an extension, gives them time to put all the required paperwork together and have all the background checks completed through our police department and the state. So that's kind of where we are. This is an approval to give them that extension and that time to keep it open.
What's the term of the license?
We just recently did the extension. It's a 1-year term that's normally July 1 through June 30th. It was just extended in July. It was all done properly. But then in August, the owner passed away. So we're asking for it to be extended for the rest of that term, which would be till June 1st, but for June 30th. But during that time, they need to now submit all the new paperwork with the new business paperwork, financials, and everything else.
How does it work, though, if the term's over? Is it open for bid to the public, or is it they have first right to?
They have the right to now transfer all that paperwork themselves. They own the license, they just have to file new paperwork as who the new owners will be per their filings. They also have the right to sell it if they wish to. They're in that, they're trying to keep it open while they decide what their next step will be. That is an option to sell it as well. I don't know that they're considering that at this
So we had talked about maybe 6-8 months ago that we may be eligible for a new one. But we have to wait for the census data to come out to see whether we're over the 9,000 figure.
A distribution license is one for every 7,500.
Yeah.
So that we qualify for an additional distribution license. For a
concession.
plenary retail, for
Right.
a restaurant, we're very close.
So once someone gets the distribution license, they own it, and they don't have to keep reapplying for it?
They renew their license every year. And as long as they are in compliance, it stays valid. If it, what's called a pocket license. That would be a license that someone owns but isn't using, and they would have the option to certainly sell that. Or it could go back to the township, lapse, if it wasn't held from.
Okay.
We don't have anything in that category at this point.
Thank you.
But Mr. Gallardo's office has been assisting with this extension. It isn't something that happens very often in this manner. So I thank John and Joe Sardillo who can help us.
Maybe Joe Sardillo.
And also, I know that every year when we get the briefing, it's usually done through the police department, through the background check. Chief, do you know of anything extenuating that through this change? Anything that we should really know about?
Mayor, it hasn't come back yet. I mean, the background investigation is going to be extensive. You have to submit financials and criminal background history and everything like that, where you're going to get the money to proceed and hold this license. So this is just extending the ability to keep that business open. And then, you know, they'll probably do some kind of corporate structure. I'm not familiar with, you know, that end of it.
Okay, but there's been nothing that's,
We have to have no, you know.
No reason to not.
No problems down
Okay.
there.
Okay.
Doors are open.
Any other questions? Can I take a motion for 2018-082?
I'll make that motion, Mayor.
I'll second.
This will be a roll call vote. Mr. Stevenson?
Aye.
Mr. Hickey?
Aye.
Mr. Jacobs?
Aye.
Ms. Santucci?
Aye.
Mayor Parker?
Aye.
Thank you.
Resolution 2018-083, personnel policy changes. And I know Judy's already kind of talked a little bit about it. Does anybody else have any comments or questions on, does this encompass the new state sick leave policy?
It does. It does. Actually, it's a large part of that, and that's why Art and Judy worked together on that. Colin and I met with Judy to review that, to understand what those changes mean for us. When we did that, we also ran into a few changes for some other areas of our personnel policy that we wanted to bring back first to the committee, that were not mandated either by law or by JIF. So we wanted to meet the JIF deadline, so that's why we implemented these changes, and then we're going to come back to you after we sit down with Judy again to go over some of the other.
Another round.
Yeah, another round. They're not minor because they affect, you know, our employees and our team here in Bedminster, but there's something that we want to make sure everybody has the ability and time to weigh in on, including, you know, the employees and including the committee. So, you know, that's why I wanted to make sure that we just kind of go forward with those that we need to.
The next round, for not necessarily for these changes, which I guess were JIF initiated, but would we have to send whatever you come up with as a recommendation for those changes? Would that have to go back to the JIF for review?
No.
No?
No.
Okay.
Those are optional. These are required. The others we're discussing are options.
All right. Any comments or questions?
Not for me.
Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Again, this is all in favor.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
List, can I get a motion to approve the bill list pending the approval of individual invoices? I need a motion
So moved.
and a second.
Second.
And this is a roll call. Mr. Stevenson?
Aye.
Mr. Hickey?
Aye.
Mr. Jacobs?
Aye.
Ms. Santucci?
Aye.
Mayor Parker?
Aye.
Thank you.
It brings us to discussion items. We have new business, old business, but we also have discussion items. Is there anything that anybody wants to bring up as a discussion item that's not under new business, not under old business?
Well, Mary, you and I had discussions with Jeff Price and Ken Rogers, and also John Blair looked into some documents as well. This is concerning Pluckman Park and its maintenance and how it looks, and how some of the prior safety issues had been addressed by ownership, and whether or not additional repairs needed to be made. Ken Rogers and Jeff Price had both gone out, both identified some issues that they thought needed to be fixed up. Mary, you and I went out there with Ken Rogers and one of the facility managers out there, and there was an undertaking to get some of those repairs done promptly. I guess there's been some additional correspondence from ownership, bringing in additional maintenance, and making certainly an indication of moving quickly on some of those repairs, and maybe some painting, and maybe some fixing the potholes and sinkholes that are in that driveway. So I just mention it, and perhaps we want to keep it on
So
new
old
business or old business.
Yeah, they
And,
were quick
we-
response, but let's see if.
Yeah,
quick to
exactly.
Make the changes.
Yeah, this would not be the first time that there's been an indication of action with not great follow-through. So if we keep it on as old business, and just as a reminder, that either Ken and Jeff should go out there and see how things are going.
Yes, I tell you what, this is one of the things that particularly disappointed me, because when the new management company bought Pluckerman Park a couple of years ago, they came before us to extend their pilot and made us a lot of promises, because there had been concern when they came before us that, Pluckerman Park has been around for a little while, and when it was built, it's not exactly brick and mortar. It's it's clapboard and wood, and it's starting to show its age. And one of the things we asked was, and we expressed concern to him, that if proper maintenance wasn't done, we were very concerned that those housing units would go into decline. And the sense I got was they're going to be all over that. Walking through it again last week, after having been there a couple months prior and a year or two before that, I was very sad, because a lot of the things that I saw 2 years ago, a lot of the things I saw last year, were the same things I saw last week. Things that, look, this is a place where it's age restricted. You have a lot of elderly folks that are living there, and we're not expecting expensive repairs to take place. We understand a landlord has to make money, but getting fixtures without light bulbs. I didn't go there at night, but I knew there was a whole bunch of lights that didn't work. Not because the lights didn't come on, because there's nothing in the socket. I know the sidewalks, I know some of the residents would probably love to see new sidewalks. Well, that's an expensive process, so you can see that it was kind of shaved and smoothed over. But there was still a lot of places where it hadn't been done. And if you've got elderly folks walking along, trips and... I talked to the gentleman shortly after we toured the place, and if I were you, I'd be scared to death of a slip and fall. I said, you've got a lot of elderly residents, and there were stairwells, or ramps, I should say, and I could shake the railing that people are supposed to use to steady themselves going up. So I told him I was disappointed. I thought it was a sad commentary on what we would normally have expected, and that certainly we can't make him do things that aren't part of code, but I promised him that our code enforcement people would be watching him and try to make sure that those things that are in violation of our code would be followed up upon. So I hope he takes that advice. I hope he moves forward, because I think a nice Pluckerman Park is an asset to Bedminster. But if it's in decline, that's just not what we want to be.
And I made reference to the sinkhole, and it is not a pothole, it is a sinkhole. You can literally see that there's a void underneath a section of the paving right around the circle up there.
And then sinkhole was there last year, and it was there the year before.
That was extremely irritating to see after certain promises had been made in the past. So between Jeff and Ken, we expect some scrutiny on that facility, and John's also up to speed, and he's looked at the resolutions and the agreement that the facility has with the town. So, let's keep it on here as old business, and so we, from the Township Committee, that we don't lose sight of what's going on out there.
All right. Okay, new business, 56 Tuttle Avenue.
I think we have someone to...
Oh, please come forward. Come come up to the microphone, state your name and your address, if it's not 56 Tuttle Avenue, or even if it is, say it.
I've been in Bedminster for 13 years. Now I'm moving from the hills to the opposite side. Me and my husband purchased the house at 56 Tuttle Avenue. It's the corner of Bedminster Terrace and Tuttle Avenue. So I brought some maps and pictures, and I would like to ask from you to okay for us to use the unimproved section of the road so we can get to our garage. Our plans are still in progress, so I don't have the map from the architect, but I have the pictures and I have the map.
Sure, if you want to show them to us, that would be great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Highway up here. Where's the highway? Here? Thank you. Down here? It's 20. Okay, it's 202.
202 is here.
I know.
Bedminster Forest is here. That's a little,
Yeah, I know where you are.
So the first there's a map, and the first picture is showing you how wide is the road on the opposite side when you come from Bedminster Terrace, and then you basically go into the woods that belongs to a funeral home. And my neighbor is using his side of the township road to get to his garage. So now our garage is gonna be in the back of in the rear, right back of our property, and we wanna just put the gravel like he did, so we can get to our garage.
So currently, your driveway goes straight in front to Tuttle Avenue.
Yes.
Is that correct? I'm sitting here, I'm trying to look at Google Earth to compare here to there. And you would like to get to something in the back or the south side that opens up onto what is kind of a dead end of Bedminster Terrace?
Yes, because we add an addition to the house, and our ideal situation is to build freestanding garage in the rear, right back of the property. That's why we would like to use that road. There's so many trees that we have to cut that kids cannot even play, so we have to.
Okay.
This property has been in rent for a long time, and it needs lots of renovations and lots of.
John, how do we treat the end of Bedminster Terrace, that end of Bedminster
we've never
Terrace?
maintained it, we don't maintain it.
Do we
It's
own it?
paper street.
Do we own it?
We own it.
You
We own
probably
that
would have
little right
to,
of
you
way.
probably would have to vacate it. You can't have a driveway in the middle of a paper street.
What that
Well-
was, that was designed for the property, the Layton property, that actually attaches to the backside of the Layton property, so if that was ever subdivided at some
Right.
point in time, that could be a.
So when I spoke to Jeff Price before we purchased the property, he told me that the Bedminster Terrace belongs to the town, and I have the right to use that road. And when we started working on our architectural project plans, we have two front sides.
Yeah,
So
your frontage is on two
I would
roads.
like to use that opportunity to use that road, even though it doesn't bring us anywhere, and I don't ask town to shovel it, to snow it, to plow it, anything. We're gonna do it by ourselves, like our neighbor does,
Okay, so right now it's gravel.
on his side.
Oh, so that's,
Because when you see in the second picture, it's a little bit, he's only put on his side, and when
Oh, I see.
we're trimming the trees, we have the nice
yep.
hardwood size to use it for our driveway.
So that's John, is this a 50-foot right-of-way?
It's a 50-foot right.
It's a 50-foot right-of-way, so not
That's what the tax map shows, yes.
So the gravel that's out there is essentially on the 25 feet adjacent to that corner property?
Yes, but it belongs to the town,
Right.
and town doesn't do anything there. I mean, they don't plow, they don't do anything. And it's okay for us, we don't ask the town to do anything.
They just want to have be able to put a
Right.
driveway up to it.
Right.
Yeah, but the one thing is, we don't know what the site plan is going to be for the house. We haven't seen any kind of architectural plan or how that site plan is going to work. So to determine how that driveway is going to fit in there, you should really be concerned, but you should be concerned somewhat of what is it going to look like and how does it affect the
Well,
neighboring property.
you always have the right, obviously, to have a driveway that goes into a public street, but my understanding is you actually want to construct a paved driveway in the paper street.
I don't think they want to do it paved. I think they want to do it stone, just as it exists today. That's the case. And if that driveway goes in, the other one has to be removed.
What's that?
What's that?
The other driveway should be removed.
Oh, the one in front?
Yeah,
Oh, at that house?
Yeah.
correct.
Yeah,
Current-
and you're not looking to have two driveways on your house, are you?
No.
No. Right.
So the current driveway is going to need to be removed.
Is the driveway going to go in this picture?
Yes, where you see the grass.
Why don't you show me where the driveway is going to go?
We're gonna trim the
Here, you
trees
can use my pen.
and
You can use my
this-
pen. You can use my pen.
the section of the grass is gonna be our gravel, making the road wider. What I showed you here in the picture, look at this strip here. We have all the width to
Okay,
make.
so you're
it
gonna use gravel. You're not gonna pave it.
I just wanna make it easier for my neighbors, so we don't really, it doesn't look really messy when we do paving or something else, just to make it easier.
But do you want to pave or put gravel? You wanna
Gravel.
put Gravel?
To match his, not to complicate anything.
The good news is you live in a town with lots of gravel streets. It's not unprecedented.
So I'm unclear, is the driveway going inside the property line?
I think,
Is this really all that different from what we did with Jardiniere, I guess, cutting into
Well,
Miller Lane?
that's what I'm asking.
Except for that
Is the
road
driveway
already
going
exists.
inside the property line, or are you looking to have the driveway outside the property line?
Put the gravel in the paper street.
And that is here.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's basically right now there's gravel there. No.
Where's the gravel?
The gravel's there, I would presume.
Right.
And she wants to put it
Right,
there.
right. Because this looks like a driveway as opposed to just general gravel.
see, what, right now, it just doesn't even exist.
Right.
But this could be a road, or it is on paper, and she wants to be able to get to that. But she might be willing to do that, but
Gravel here.
it's not even,
Actually, this right now is the side road. He's using this as parking.
She's essentially constructing a driveway onto a street. That's maybe a paper street.
well, the problem is, you probably ought to have a real street there. Or, like I said, even if it's a real street, just gravel.
Yeah. Well, I think she's
I don't think
proposing.
it's- Yeah.
So you're proposing, but I know you just did this with John. So you're essentially going from here to here. You're just going to put the same gravel here and put it out there, and then you will tie in somewhere.
Yes.
Your driveway, which comes out this way, will come in that way.
Have a drive that comes here. Does there need, John, do we need to have some kind of base in here? Because I assume this is just on paper, so if you were to construct, if we charged you with the job of creating that paper road out of gravel, would you have to lay base and other things under it?
You'd have to dig it
As
down
opposed to
probably
just-
8 to 10 inches, put down DGA, bring it up wherever you need to be compacted.
So you're talking about,
The roadways-
you're talking about to bring it to a
Compliant.
traffic compliant gravel drive, municipally owned and operated.
Currently, if you look at the picture, the gentleman's driveway, the neighbor's driveway, is at the end of that road for the most part, and goes right into the property. He's done it for 20-plus years. So, I mean, I don't have any problems with what they're asking at this point in time. I just don't think we want to be anywhere close to maintaining any of that at this point in time.
Right, on two separate questions.
Okay.
So I think we'll come to that second question later. But right now, I think the question is to make that a compliant gravel drive. For you, if Bedminster took that work, it would be a little bit of effort to get there.
It would be.
Okay.
And I don't know where I mean, I saw where the property lines are at that point in time, because they had it surveyed, and it does show the corners of the properties from where the Layton's property is and your current property. So there's actually 3 corners out there. The front corner, the corner where the end of the right-of-way is, for the most part, and in continuation on where her lot line is.
So I guess the question, somewhere between municipal right-of-way, is there a license or something else that the town can offer for that area?
Well, look, I have to look into it. Obviously, this isn't an issue that arises every day. Putting things in paper streets, certainly you're not allowed to put things in public streets. This hasn't been accepted, but nonetheless, it is a paper street, which the town, if it wants, could come in and turn into a public street. So anytime you alter something in a public paper street, it could be problematic.
So right now you don't, it's been identified by plat, but as there's no deed of dedication, not deed of dedication.
I mean, I have
a dedication of the public right of way.
This is just coming to me, so I don't know that it's ever been accepted. Maybe it was accepted and we've just never maintained it. I don't know the answer to that. You probably have to go back and look.
Yeah, and it may not go until,
thing.
so the Layton property is back there, which is, my guess is that's the only means of egress and ingress for the Layton property, so it can't be, we can't vacate the right of way.
Yeah, I don't
If
know.
developed
I know where
the way
Layton.
they want it.
If in the future that area behind Layton and the church ever gets
If
developed.
that becomes then a public road that goes
Right.
in through that lot, the Layton lot, then the driveways, the current driveways that they exist, I'm not saying that hers is gonna be that way, but the current driveway that's there would have to be moved.
Right.
And probably come out onto,
Yeah, by
On that new road.
then it would come onto a real road as
Right.
opposed to
Yeah.
he just slapping down some gravel.
Do we know how the adjoining driveway came to be? In other words, other than he brought a bunch of trucks in and put some gravel down, I probably guessed that, but I mean,
It's maintained.
was there anything, was there any paperwork that came through the town, or did it just kind of happen?
no,
It just
it's just kind of,
So, it seems,
it's probably, I think he's owned it for a number of years. I don't recall anything ever being done to that house across from hers that changed any of that roadway the way it was. We have never maintained it. Really,
Right.
it doesn't even exist in my world,
yeah.
you know, until this comes up.
Well, and John, I'm gonna just say some things out loud, and you can research it, and next time we meet, tell me I was all wet and I shouldn't. But it seems like there could be a couple forks in the road, I don't know, there's a fork in the road, a couple options here for us. And one is, we could turn that into a real road. That would be very expensive, and it's a road that doesn't go very far. But could we fully do what was probably done informally with the other neighbor? In other words, could some agreement be concocted such that we agree to let them build their gravel driveway on a road that could eventually become a real road, and kind of say, we're not going to ask a lot of questions, but you can have it and use it, and at such point when it gets developed, you agree that it comes back to us and we turn it into a real road, and we're going to maintain it, but we're
I
not
think I would
going
be more comfortable doing that, because obviously,
Yeah.
concern is adverse possession.
Not against the
You
state.
can't adverse against municipality, can you?
Yeah, you can, sir.
Against the government?
Sure. It's a longer period of
I think it's a
time.
much longer period.
Much longer period of time, but it's still out there. So you can check the state statute on
I
that,
think that's,
so.
well, we'll save that for another discussion. But I think that would be, you know, I mentioned license before, I think that's probably what you're looking at, formalizing, if it can be done, right? So that's the first assignment,
Right.
can you do it that way?
Essentially, the homeowner would indemnify and hold you harmless as a result of any accidents or other things that happened as a result of constructing a gravel driveway, and there would be an agreement and acknowledgement that should the town in the future decide to develop that as a public road, there would be no compensation for any work that they did in there. They probably also have to
So-
keep the existing driveway on Tuttle, because if you came in the future, well,
Well, you're not, because then
the
then
driveway
it's a,
comes
then it's a
down the
road. Then it's a, then
Yeah,
you've
they
got a
only, yeah,
real road.
they would only change
and
it
a
if
real
it became a
driveway.
real road, yeah.
So, ma'am, this is the tough question. What's your timing?
We have time.
Okay,
We are.
that's a good answer.
Because I think if Mr. Bellardo can go back and not be ambushed by this and do a little bit of research and find a solution to this, I'll ask up and down the board if we have a sense that we would like to try to work with you on this.
Mayor, can I just say one thing?
Yeah.
I think conceptually, I think we're all in agreement, this is fine. What I don't see, what I don't have in front of me is how the property's going to look. And I think that would help us all if we had something in front of us of what the property's gonna look, and, you know, how driveway and where the garage is gonna be situated, and how that driveway is going to look, and to be identified. I know that she also has a tree removal permit that Paul signed off on last week to remove a number of pine trees on the property in order to do this at this point in time. Whether or not, I would assume Jeff has given her some kind of idea of the area that she can build on that lot. I don't know if she needs to come in front of the boards at any point, the land use board, for anything. I'm not sure how that is at this point. So, conceptually, I think we're fine.
Has there been a survey done of the property so we know where your property ends and the town's?
She just had a survey done, so there's not pins, but there's marks.
Yeah, I'd be interested in seeing the survey.
Well, ma'am, if you can sometime over the next couple weeks, week or so, just provide us with something basic that gives us an idea, as what Mr. Mance was saying, what it's going to kind of look like, what your dream is to do this. I think that'll help. We'll have Mr. Bellardo see what's possible.
Also a copy of your title commitment and title policy that was issued to you when you purchased the home. So
I
I'd
have part of survey here on the.
Yeah, but I would like to see the formal survey that was done at closing.
Yeah,
And also your
John,
title
there's a
commitment
chance
policy.
that property belongs to Layton.
What, the,
Yeah.
oh, yeah.
That.
Well, yeah, I gotta look at those
Right,
things.
so that's why.
I mean, if the search that the title company did would reveal existing perhaps easements or right-of-ways or other things and would give me some history on.
Well, it also may indicate whether or not that, that paper street, we talked before about whether it's dedicated and the town accepted it. If not, is that part of the Layton property off to the side? Because right now, it would still be Layton's property. So,
These are things
so
we have to look at.
whatever information you can get over to Judy, including, you had mentioned architects, if you have architectural plans
yes,
and a
sure.
site plan, that'd be great to get to Judy. Okay?
Yeah, we can't, I don't think we can give you an answer tonight, but one thing that I do want to say before she steps away, one thing that we've talked about as a board over the past several years is that when people take their own properties and try to improve them, it improves Bedminster.
Yes.
And that we've made a conscious effort in the past couple of years, especially with our friends on the land use board, to try to be helpful rather than get in the way. So our goal is to help you. We can't guarantee, because there's a lot of things, but these folks will do what they can to see what's possible.
Listen, I've been here for 13 years and I would love to stay here.
All right.
So we'll make
Well,
it
we're
work.
glad you're staying in Bedminster and improving your property.
And, well, yeah, certainly go to the farmer's market, and welcome to this neighborhood.
Thank you. My kids are there.
Thank you.
And the farmer's market.
Thank you.
How many drinks is that?
Each time you say it.
Oh, sorry. Old business, short-term rentals. I think we have some news on that. Do we?
Yes, Mayor, I circulated an article that I saw this morning. Granted, I really sort of glossed quickly over
Everyone has a copy.
the article, but Doug read the article. So I'm just going to,
Doug's all over it.
quickly turn to Doug.
Wow. No, I mean, it's just an article talking about now the state's looking to jump in on the taxation of Airbnbs. There's an exception if you choose to use a real estate broker, you can avoid paying the tax. But if you don't, you're going to owe, well, the state's going to mandate that you collect both sales tax and a use tax, use and occupancy tax. So it looks like, you know, it's sort of being taken
In
up
a
the
shocking
chain.
move, the folks down in Trenton are looking to put a tax on it.
Yeah, right?
I know that's hard to believe.
But I thought the interesting part of it was that you're exempt if you use a real estate broker. So I guess that's,
No, some lobbyists.
Sure, there's no, yeah, no
The
special
realtors
interest
are better
there.
lobbyists than Airbnb does. And there's also, I guess, an indication that some municipalities can, if they want, have the option to put another tax
right.
on top of what the state would be collecting. While this is certainly not dead on with the issue that we've discussed, it certainly shows that there's more scrutiny and more focus coming on Airbnb use of rentals, and the articles, and I think even the legislation, is analogizing Airbnbs to hotels rather than long-term stays. So if you're looking at taking your property and doing a 2-day rental or 1-week rental, that's closer to a hotel situation, and the state is beginning to pay a little more attention to it. And just as we've been discussing here for a couple months, you know, we got to track this and see where it goes.
And finally, engine braking. Any news? Nothing? Sign still working?
Yeah. Farmers market?
Fall Fest.
Fall Fest, there you go.
We're gonna have a tug of war.
Here too.
All right.
There you go.
Okay, and that brings us to our second and final round of public comments. As I said before, if you're a member of the public and you wish to comment, you can come before that microphone, state your name, address, and for the audio recording.
Good evening, everyone. Tom DiChiaro from 58 Pheasant Brook Court. Also here tonight is a representative from Hills Village North Master Association and a board member and trustee from one of the neighborhoods. You probably all know Hills Village North Master is probably one of the largest residential developments of community in 6 neighborhoods. Probably has the largest population of the unit hills in Bedminster. And I know Mayor, Steve, and you, and Doug, I know you've been before us. You came out and spoke with us, which we appreciate. And I know, Doug, I think you were there within the last 6 months it was.
Yes.
And, you know, we on the board and the residents, we appreciate that frank and productive discussions. I think we get a lot accomplished. But tonight, I really wish the issue that I'm going to bring before you was available when you came, so we can talk about it. Particularly, it's ordinance number 2017-08 entitled, an ordinance amending Chapter 8 entitled Land Management of the Township of Bedminster. It was introduced by you, Committeeman Stevenson, back in, I guess, in May or April. It was passed in May 1st of 2017, a little over a year and a half ago, published on May 4th, and adopted on May 15th. It was just one thing we were a little confused at it. It said it was later introduced by you, Committeeman Jacobs, Larry, so I don't know why we introduced it twice. Maybe that was something.
There was a revision.
A revision, okay. Just, that's clarified now. This ordinance basically provides the certain exemptions from developments in the township where the land use board, the joint board, does not have to go through formal site plan review. There are 16 of those exemptions. Only one of which we have an issue with. It's Part E1, subpart F. It says here, accessory buildings, other roofed accessory structures, or additions to principal structures that do not exceed 300 square feet of gross floor area, all of which are approved by the Historic Preservation Commission, if applicable. You can rearrange that any way you say, but basically it's like putting, like in the hills, any of you reside in the hills and the condos? Well, you would know that if you put a 10 by 30 structure, that's about the size of a bedroom, putting in the area without going through site plan review. The reason why we have an issue with it is because it allows that exception to occur in the hills. We all know the hills are the largest population, largest group of individuals living in the township, and we treasure open space. We treasure it everywhere in the township. Our master plan alludes to that. I, as a former environmental commissioner, fought hard like anyone to keep and preserve open space, common areas. When the hills were initially developed some 30 years ago, those approved plans dedicated open space, common area, for a variety of reasons, for those that you are aware of. And this ordinance basically limits that ability of those site plans that were pre-approved and what the master plan looks to preserve open space and common areas. And like I said, we only have issue with one of the exceptions, and that's it. Now, I would like someone, if not you, Larry, I know you're an attorney and have experience in land use, and perhaps you, John, but under Part 2, Subpart C, it says developments do not, now these are things that are not part of the exception, okay? It says development shall not include any of the following which shall be required to obtain site plan approval. C, Subpart C says developments do not fully comply with all applicable conditions of prior approvals of the property. That could be interpreted several different ways. On one side, where we're coming from, that could say, well, the developments in the hills, these were all approved by prior site plans with dedicated open space and common areas. So
Tom,
does that mean that this doesn't apply?
I hate to cut you short here, but what's your gripe?
Okay.
What is it that you don't like about
I'll get
it?
into that now. I'm just trying to get off
Okay.
the street, because this thing's a year and a half old. I mean, we could have
All right.
filled the room tonight. We said, no,
Yep.
let's not make a great
No,
thing
but-
out of it. But I'm just saying, we're at a point now where we have been, in the last 3 or 4 months, this ordinance has allowed one of the boards to, on their own, construct a 10 by, what was the size? A 10 by 10 shed in common open space area between the woods and the units. Now, they did it without any kind of review by Jeff Price or even Paul. We later found out when they went, they said, well, you don't need site plan review. All you need to do is, we're going to halt your construction. You have to give us a $50 fee. There's a list of things they have to do. And if we agree that it's part of the exemption, you can build your shed. And that's the gripe.
Now, who built it?
The Wood Duck Neighborhood Board.
Okay, and who are they comprised of?
What's that?
Who are they comprised of? Who do they answer to?
Well, they answer to themselves. They're the board.
Yeah, I know,
And
but
they
to
answer
your,
the owner.
to your constituents, right?
And here's where I'm going with this.
Right.
So they put it up, there was no notice of them putting this up, either by them, and because it didn't go before site plan review, there was no notice to the adjacent property owners.
Uh-huh.
So they went back and they filed their $50 fee and they got approval, and that was it. But that has resulted in local neighbors taking at legal expense, lawsuits and everything else. It basically took the neighbors and the board, and we were at odds. We had some very dicey meetings over this. Luckily, it got to the point, because of legal action by some of the people in this room against the board, that they decided to take the shed away. Right now, everybody's happy. But the question we have is, why did an ordinance like this be placed before the hills to just let any board member or someone in there to build a shed up to 300 square feet without going through the land use board for site plan review? Why just say it's an exempt issue? Now, again, we agreed on a lot of things.
Well, I'll tell you, one of the things is that you have your own governance. In other words, the only people that are putting stuff up there are people that answer to you and your board and your homeowners. So therefore, just because something is allowed doesn't mean it's...
Well,
No, so...
they've been around for 30 years, and they've never, ever wanted to put up a shed before until this ordinance came and said they're exempt from site plan review. And I'll tell
But
you-
who funds it?
What's that?
Who funds them?
Who funds them?
Your association, right?
Right.
And if your association got together and said, we don't like this...
We did.
It wouldn't happen.
After the fact, after they
Right.
constructed it. At court-
But who's in charge of monitoring and managing them?
Well, we elect them.
Yeah.
But that's not the point.
No, it's exactly the point.
is Why would it apply to the hills? It's in contradiction of what the hills was initially established for, to preserve open space. Why are you making it exempt?
Your governing documents back from 30 years ago probably have prohibitions against erecting structures in open space. I would think if you looked at the documents from 30 years ago that run with the land, that most likely there are prescriptions
Well,
against
let's
doing
assume that they don't.
Well, I don't know that that's...
We know some-
I would have to assume and think that that's probably there, because most planned unit developments, when they are put together and they dedicate open space to the development, there's usually prohibitions against the structures being constructed in open space.
Are you going to see that in the site plan approval, or are you going to see that in the public offering?
Public
documents?
offering statement.
So that's once again, but Tom, that's an internal condominium issue. So if the condominium, when it was created, said, this is going to be open space, and a board decides to put something there, then
But it allows them to do something without...
but that's a condo issue. If they put something on something that the condo is already restricted from, that's an internal condominium issue.
But how do you, as a township land use board, allow
We
structures on areas
don't
that
govern
are
what the
supposed to be
condo
dedicated to open
association
space?
does within its own land.
Oh, associations can do anything they want anywhere, but usually they have to go through a site plan review. They can build a road if they want, but they're not going to do it because it's inside the neighborhood. They're going to have to check with Paul or with the chief here to say where they're going to put a road. Someone's going to know about it. We're not saying, there's 16 things here. All we're saying is, and we're not saying that it's out of the question. All we're saying is, let it go before the land use board as a site plan review. Let the environmental commission look at it and say, this is not consistent of what the goals and objective of the master plan is and what these developments are looking for.
But can't your association simply turn it off before it even gets there?
Yeah, what if they don't?
Maybe they want it. Maybe Pineville would like to have a
They have no
shed.
recourse.
Maybe Village Green would like to have a shed.
If I recall, this issue came up on the heels of Superstorm Sandy, and we went to the land use board and said, what types of applications are you essentially rubber stamping? How can we alleviate the red tape? How can we get the residents to get more use of their property that's going to be the least restrictive means? So things like generators were thought of as an exemption. There should be no need to have to go fill out paperwork to get a generator going so that you can have power. And if this is the one bogey that's out there and they took advantage of it, then, it's the ends that's driving the conversation. But again, my recollection, and please, I'll go back and look at this, but I don't recall the changes affecting the areas in the hills. I recall this being related to R10, where we had some changes and we had some village areas. So maybe it does, but I don't recall that being in play.
We asked that, this should not apply to the hills. We're saying, put it before the site plan review committee so they can be required to notice everybody around it, and then...
But again, that's the very point of what we were trying to alleviate. Things that were just coming through, that was unnecessary to have to go through those steps, because quite frankly, there was too much red tape.
And to be
16 things here, we agree with all of them, except for just the one, that to avoid going through what some of the neighborhoods have gone through and some of the neighbors have gone through in the past. We're not saying it eliminates sheds. All we're saying is, let the site plan review look at it. Let the environmental commission consider it in proximity to the wetlands, the waters, the woods, see if it's appropriate to put it behind condos in the hills. Because that takes away open space, which it was reserved to, and it hurts property values. Now, I know that's not your particular issue.
But it's not an automatic rubber stamp from our perspective. It was that you don't need town approval. They would still need to get the approvals from those folks in the hills that are running the show. So it's not like, yet they have the ability to do it from a governmental perspective. They don't have to come down to town hall to fill out applications. They still have to comply with their associations.
They're the applicant. And all we're saying, fine, let them do what they have to do.
But they're doing stuff on property that's subject to the boards.
That's an issue.
So Tom, how did the shed was constructed and then it was taken down?
The shed was partially constructed with no prior notice and no application before the township.
You guys, so a group of
The
residents
neighborhoods-
went to the board.
They said, there was a complaint filed with the town. Jeff looked at it, I forget who it was sent to. And they said, they never filed an application for the exemption. Now, this ordinance basically says you gotta come and do a...
So they went to the town before going to the homeowner association that built it?
They just built it without even going to the homeowner association, thinking they were exempt, they didn't have to do anything. I think it was Jeff who said, okay, you have to stop construction. You have to come in, fill out the form, go through these 5 items. We'll determine if you are an exempt development. Basically, you have to go through this. And they said, Paul looked at it, and Jeff was, okay, you're exempt. Get your application in, have a few hours, fix it, and you can build your shed.
And so then they went back to construction.
They were
And
going to go back.
they were going to, and that's when the residents went to the board association, went to the board.
We filed, the residents in that community, adjacent property owners filed a petition, go to the board, telling them this is not acceptable. We do not want this, we were not prior.
Did the board give any explanation for why they were building the shed?
It was actually for commercial reasons. The property manager, which is a private enterprise, large one, felt that it was too expensive for them and to the board to keep going down to Home Depot to buy equipment. So they said, and this is what problem we have with this also, we'll build a shed and we'll store it with materials. Now, there's no restriction on what they put in there. Now, what if they put chemicals in there and the wind blew this thing down someday and all those chemicals drove down the hill and go into the tributaries that go into the North Branch, a protected water?
Well, let me ask you, does your association have rules about what goes in your garages?
Really?
Not really?
I mean, I don't know,
Yeah.
what's the limitation?
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
But anyway, my point is not...
That's a fire code.
My point is not to exactly go through what it is, but that your association has control over that. And your association has control over your maintenance company, I assume, and answers to your constituents.
I'm not going to talk about the quality of some of these boards, but all I'm saying is, we're not saying to eliminate any sheds. All we're saying is, make it go through one more source of review where the public has an opportunity to comment on it. Because this could be in our neighborhood. What if on the other side of those woods, or the other side of the creek, there's another neighborhood that has nothing to do with our board, they don't like the shed there, or they're concerned. They have no way to come out and voice their opinion. At site plan review, they do. The environment...
Well, we have the same problem with Bernards Township.
What's that?
We have the same problem with Bernards Township, that we share the hills, and somebody could do something in Bernards Township, and we really have no recourse over that. So you're going to have some boundaries.
To ourselves. Well, yeah, but these are inside Bedminster. I'm not talking...
No, I understand.
This is a neighborhood here that's in one neighborhood, you got another neighborhood, both in Bedminster.
Right.
They have no recourse to stop this shed if it's going to affect their property values or whatever. With the site plan review or getting property notice and having an environmental commission...
Well, don't you have a global association, the master association, that also helps govern the sub-associations?
Well, they do, but they don't control the land that's owned by the individual neighborhood. It's only the land that's owned by the master. That's the difference.
So it still sounds like you have an issue with, so there's a site plan that approved these developments, right? So the ordinance already provides that any of these additions has to comply and can't contravene any of those prior approvals. Internally,
Regardless of what the board says.
Internally, if there are restricted areas that are reserved within the public offering statements in the POS, if it says this land is reserved for open space, and that's what it says, then condo cannot do that without changing those documents. It sounds like you already have a fair amount of protections built into that are specific to the condominiums.
We're not sure of that language, but again, this doesn't stop a shed from being built. All it does is put a review process in place that allows the township to say, is this appropriate? If somebody wants to speak from the public to come in, adjacent property owners, they can voice their opinion. The land use board can still vote on it to approve it, and there's not much you can do. They're going to take into consideration those issues that I brought up, where now, with this ordinance, none of that will come up, and it's caused some strife in some of the neighborhoods. And we don't need that. We don't want lawsuits, we don't want people fighting amongst each other, arguing with boards and having, barn burner meetings. And all I'm saying is that, and again, I don't know what this interpretation under C means. Maybe you, John, or you, Larry, can review that.
I don't have it in front of me.
And look at that interpretation and say, what does that mean when you say conditions of prior approvals of the property? Does that include subdivisions like PRDs? Why would put in there, and what does that mean? If you can get a definition.
Well, that's what that means, as Mr. Jacobs said, if there have been prior land use board approvals, those govern.
Then it's not exempt.
If any attorney, if given the public offering statement and the initial creating documents, could probably within 20 minutes find language that restricts structures and other things in open space. I would almost have to think that that was included in there. I know Hill Walk was
When
involved
you
in
guys,
that.
Tom, you had mentioned that you guys, that the residents took legal action. Did someone?
Well, they were taking it and then they stopped.
Okay,
because
so-
the board decided they didn't want to go through the hassle. But what I'm saying-
Did you have a lawyer look at the POS to see what it said about that land area?
That, I wasn't part of that legal
Okay.
lawsuit. But what I'm saying is, if this Part C, if what you say, John, is correct, then
Again, I don't have it in front of me, Tom, so,
I can leave it with you.
yeah.
But I'm saying, if what you say is correct, and it is not exempt from site plan review, then where does that responsibility fall? Does it responsibly fall on Paul and Jeff and their departments to make sure it's not, it won't be exempt? Who's responsible to make that decision?
I guarantee you there's probably language in your public offering statement that precludes structures in open space, and that would end the issue.
My recollection of the ordinance is that, yes, it is, the town engineer has the review of the application. So, yes.
And I mentioned it. I said, Paul, this is the hills. We have prior site plan approval. This is supposed to be common area. You can take a nice green open space, a buffer between the water and the woods, and a unit and shove down a 300 square foot structure.
Well, you need to look at your public offering
Yeah.
statement. You can't repeat that. And
The question is whether it's an open space that's built into the site plan approval or open space that's built into your POS. If it's built into the POS, then that's an internal condominium element.
I can't imagine that in the hills, I mean, he's the biggest part of the township, that these site plans, when they were put through, they had that in.
No, but it's where you're, if that is restricted as open space, is it restricted as open space by an agreement with the township or the resolution of approval with the planning board, or is it a restriction on open space that's built into your condo documents?
Well, we have to go back 30-something.
There's, so
Right.
I know
We gotta go back 30 years.
several of these internal village documents, I believe, have architectural review committees, so that if the association wants to do anything of a public improvement, I recall looking at one point at one that said there's an architectural review committee that it has to go before. And that would also, again, be another internal protection. So these are all things you have to look for in the public offering statement when you're dealing with this issue. Again, though, internal to their governing documents.
Does your,
Back over 30 years on some of this stuff. But-
Tom, does your board have that? Do you have the architectural?
I don't know how.
No, do you have the architectural review committee, internal?
Well, yeah, but not back then, 30 years ago.
No, today.
There is an.
So if that shed was going up, did it have to go through any internal review?
It's sort of an informal process that they have, and that's why,
I've seen that in a document from 1986. So I know that architectural review boards, at least in the villages I've seen, have existed since the beginning of the incorporation of the hill. So if they're going to do something and change facades and other things and stairs, then they're supposed to be going through an architectural review committee.
Well-
that architectural review committee goes half-cocked off into their minds.
Well, I'm just telling you, Tom, you're coming to the town on an issue where you could simply look at these documents and have a lawyer look at them for half an hour, and all those protections are built in. And again, I'm not saying that language is in there, but when people come to me as a lawyer and say, I've got an issue with something that not only in Bedminster, but I live in a planned unit development, I got an issue, and Mr. Jacobs and all the lawyers up here, the first thing we're going to say is, let's see the public offering statement. And if we can find something in there that says you can't do this in open space, then that's the end of the story.
Well, Tom, I'm going to
I
speak,
thought just wondering, what was the intent?
I'm going to speak as the rare bird or two up here that's not a lawyer. And I am of the firm opinion that the best government is the government closest to you. And by being in the hills, you're very fortunate in that because you have the homeowner association and the master association, you guys are a lot closer to the problem and a lot closer to the issue and a lot closer to the mood and the temper and the climate in your neighborhoods than the five of us can be up here. And the good news is that you're looking at things that are developing in your neighborhood. It sounds like the process worked. Somebody put up something that somebody in your neighborhood didn't like. talked amongst yourselves, you determined you didn't like it, you went through association, you got it squashed, you got it taken down. Now, if you want to spend a lot of money, when I'm hearing the terms Architectural Review Committee, you know, put it under some lawyer's nose. If you want to spend a lot of money and you want to come to the town and get a permit and get a review and get an attorney, one of the things that revision to that ordinance was about was to try to save people money and try to push it down to a common sense, neighborly approach to things. And it sounds like your neighborhood did it right, meaning they took care of a problem internally. Right, exactly.
But why?
Democracy in action, it won, you won.
They could have still built this if the site plan review committee said, okay, it's fine, and then we would have a whole different type of legal action if it was to occur.
No, that's the
Because
point.
there was no public notice given, there was no site review, no environmental commission review, they would have said, we don't want a shed in this area. What's restricting them? I don't know, does the fire department have a restriction on what you can put in the sheds?
But if the public offering statement says you may not do that, then no, then you couldn't get that approval. That's what we're suggesting.
And if
So
you get enough
this rule
angry
was-
people out of your homeowner association, say, take that damn shed down, your association, you sit on that board, you're gonna look at money and say, I think we better take that thing
I
down.
don't sit on that board. I said, we would never allow anything like that in the master to occur, but the thing is, why, I mean, did the land use committee, land use board actually get consulted? Did the environmental commission get consulted on this? They were aware of all this, and they said they have no issue with this?
Absolutely.
Even though a lot of them live in the hills, they said there's no problem with this?
The land use board absolutely signed off on it. They consulted, they blessed it. It started a subcommittee to the land use board with yours truly on various areas throughout the municipality where we could give relief to the residents. And it went to the committee, it went through multiple revisions, it was introduced, it was then taken off, it was revised, it went back, it's been on the agendas. This has been something that's been out there for quite some time.
Of the land use?
No, this dais right here.
What
Both.
about the actual land use board
Yes.
and the environmental commission? Were they consulted on this? What do you think?
Yes, I just mentioned that the land use board was consulted.
And the spirit of it is kind of what you saw tonight with the lady that came up in before you. Because that lady came up, she's got a problem over on Tuttle that she needs to have resolved. You know what a real easy solution for the five of us could have been? To go file something with the land use board, and it'll take you 6 months, get an attorney, get an architect, get an engineer, and we'll come back in 6 months and we'll tell you if you can put your driveway on that paper road. That would have been the easy solution. Could have gotten us all off the hook. But that's not what Bedminster should be. Bedminster should be done, things should be resolved at the lowest level amongst neighbors.
Again.
And I think we're going to try and give her a common sense solution as opposed to a bureaucratic one.
16 things that are exempt, we have no issue with that, makes sense. I mean, you came to the master association to put an emergency generator in case we have to put our residents in that building. That makes sense to us, no problem. It was just that because some of these boards take things into their own hands, and I know that's not something you have to deal with, but if there was another level of review and something as sensitive to the hills, this may not have come down to a lot of fighting and arguing legal matters. They would have been properly noticed because it would have to go in from the site plan review committee. If they would come here and make their piece, the site plan review committee said, well, this is not in the best interest of the neighborhood or the area or the environment for Bedminster. That's all we're saying. So 1 out of 16 is not bad. We're saying, why can't you put that back before the site plan review?
If you kept the file, I imagine when you closed on your house, you kept a closing file. You go back and look in that file, you're going to find all the documents you need, the public offering statement, everything else. And there's indexes in front of all those, and there's probably an entry for open space. And I bet you're going to find something that says people can't build things in open space.
John, I gotta tell you,
Tom, I got to tell you, that is the answer. And I know because a couple years ago, someone asked me to do that for an issue in the hills, a private client, and I looked at those documents, and that's why I know there's architectural review committees and there's all sorts of restrictions that run against what you can do in open space.
And that extends to the boards themselves.
Yeah, I mean, these are, covenants that run with the land. They're recorded.
It's the organic document.
With the county clerk. Everyone, when they buy a unit, that comes up, it's part of your title policy. So I remember I lived in Spring Ridge, we bought a condo unit. I lived on a second floor when we first got married. We overlooked open space. I couldn't go out and build something in the open space because there were prohibitions against that.
And the prohibition extend not just to the individual
What if
condo
it-
owners,
what
but
if it
also to the
exempted your
boards
board?
themselves.
Yes.
Right.
But what if it exempted your board from taking action? Not you as an individual property owner. What if it exempted your board?
Well,
from
Tom, you gotta look. We're lawyers. You look at the documents you were given at your closing, that's the first place to look.
Some of them, they were poorly written, but we'll look at
And-
them again.
But let- and-
Hel Wallach wrote those documents. They're still the foremost condominium law
Can I add something?
people in the state, so I don't think they were poorly written. I've seen those documents.
Jackie, we'll let you up here in just a second. But I
Yeah, I don't know.
I would just turn it, I would just turn it on its head, and what if you had everybody in all your associations that desperately wanted something, and you wanted something quick? But Big Brother at the town said, no, we gotta go through this huge review. I think you'd be hopping mad, and our goal was to try to streamline some of that.
I don't know. It depends what it is.
Well, not if everybody...
Reviews
well,
are in the public good. That's why we have land use boards. That's why we have environmental commissions for that purpose. You take that away, then what's the purpose of those boards? I mean, I give training to our people, for the New Jersey planning officials, to train board members for zoning, joint boards, and land use boards. And I tell them, reason why we have public input and why you have to follow certain rules, and the public is the first important thing you have to deal with. You take that away, then what's the point of having the boards?
But your associations are the closest one to the public.
Yeah, well, I think boards sometimes are run amok, but if there's something that controls them a little bit, it might help.
Whoever, you've been patient, please, please, speak into that microphone, state your name and your address. We know who you are looking at you,
Okay.
but the people are gonna...
Because I live right across the street from what they were putting up, and so do the other people in this room that were on either aisle there.
Mhm.
We were involved in this before Tom. He generously got us involved from the point of view of the ordinance. But before this all started, I went through the POS, and John, you're absolutely correct. Everything you say is in there. The duty that they have to protect the common space.
Mhm.
It's listed 20 times
I
in the
know it would be.
documents, and verbatim. Everybody can attest to this. I read these at a condominium meeting. Not only that, there's also the proviso that the architectural committee has the right to supersede those open space requirements, so to speak. Well, our condominium association, I guess this is more our problem than it is yours, is made up of one person on the architectural committee, and that person is also on the board. So when we brought up all these issues as to whether this shed should be allowed, and it contradicts everything in the POS, they said the architectural committee approved it. Correct, everybody? That's what they said. It gave them the out.
I would be surprised if your governing documents allowed an architectural review committee to allow construction of structures in open space where the underlying documents otherwise prohibited. But then again, I haven't read them, so.
Yeah, well, if I could have pointed to that paragraph, maybe they would have listened, but instead, they used the architectural committee as their help, that they were allowed to do, put up this shed, and then, of course, when it went to Jeff, because of the new ordinance from 15, allowed a shed under 300 square feet to be allowed, so they said that they were going to proceed until we got about 50 homeowners to sign a petition saying that it was, and I might add, a lawyer to also get involved. And they said the petition had nothing to do with it, and it was obviously the lawyer's letter that ended up having them take away the shed. But we were also warned at the last condominium meeting that the issue is not dead. If they choose to put up a shed somewhere else, they have the right to do it because they've already gotten prior approval on this one. So we're caught kind of between a rock and a hard place. So that's why Tom suggested.
Well, there's a caveat.
I bet your lawyer cited the open space.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I knew it.
Because he took all the things that I had sent to our board and put them in a letter.
And they
brought to our
probably
board.
realized that based upon his citation of your governing documents, that he was correct, that they weren't allowed to do that, even though they were saying they could do that with the blessing of the architectural committee. So you had your protections in your documents, the lawyer wrote, and they realized they were wrong and removed it.
And Jackie? Good job. You did it.
So far.
You did it.
So far, it's done. In fact, Costco carted it away today. But it took since May 25th our entire summer was ruined worrying and fretting over this shed, unfortunately. And if you can believe what an eyesore this was in front of our houses. Can you believe that? A Rubbermaid 8 by 10 shed being put up?
And the other thing too, Jack, we don't know who goes in and out of it or what they're putting in there. That's the other problem. There's no like really code that says you cannot put certain things in that shed. That's the other thing that scares us.
But again, it's under the control of the contractor that you've hired.
They're not gonna be there every day watching what goes in and out of the shed. That's a problem. And I know it's true in single-family homes, but.
And I got a secret for you, that our zoning officer doesn't know absolutely everything that goes on in every neighborhood. So it's, you know, like I said, I think you guys at the grassroots, as you did, made a change that you needed to occur. And I think that's local government doing it.
And everybody, every association is gonna have to go through the angst that we went through to fight their own, you know, boards. And do you want that?
Well, you have elections.
I know.
That's a way to change.
About it.
It's, you know, throw the rascals out.
Changing the board, yeah, then you have to do too much work.
Oh, no. All right, well,
All right, Larry, thank you.
we thank you. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you, Tom, and thank you, Jackie.
Thank you.
And Jackie, once again, great job, because you saw an issue, you guys dealt with it, tackled it, and you got the result.
Hopefully we didn't have to deal with it, but hopefully it won't come up. But I want to thank the township also, and the chief, and John, put up that sign on Robertson. It makes people yield. We hope they read it. Somebody hit it already, but we'd like to just say, if we can get, because it's a township road, very few people are doing 25 miles an hour. If we can get a couple of units there, maybe an artillery or something, just to show presence for radar, it might slow people down in traffic calming. We can't put speed bumps up there, but maybe once in a while, put a unit there to watch for traffic and speeders. It might slow them down a little bit. It's right in front of the daycare center. It's a reverse curve. It's a start of our pedestrian path. It's a heavily used pedestrian walkway. So if we can look at that, that would be appreciated.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tom.
Is there any other member of the public that wishes to be heard? All right, we will go on to Township Committee comments. We'll start with Mr. Stevenson.
No comments, Mayor.
Mr. Hickey.
Mayor, thank you, no comments.
Mr. Jacobs.
Farmers Market?
I'm running out of ink.
No further comments.
Ms. Santucci?
Mayor, thank you.
Okay, we do have 1, 2, 3 items for executive session. None of those will be resulting in any action of this board coming out of executive session. So can I get a motion to go into executive session?
So moved.
Good night.
Good night, Jackie.
And without a gavel,
Second.
we're going into
Bye, Tom.
executive session. How about that?
You really want to do this, huh?
Guacamole, farmer's market. What are you selling?
Cauliflower. So the email. You had much longer.
All right, tell me when we are back on.
We are back.
We are back, and it is 8 minutes after 10, and we are out of executive session. And so I will ask, can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Without a gavel, I'm going to.
There you go.
Where's your
I
gavel?
somehow don't think that's...
Where's your
that's not
gavel?
terribly dignified. I don't know.
It's at the farmer's
It's been
market.
repossessed.
Farmer's market.
No, someone was using it to assemble a shed.
So where did the gavel go?
I don't know.
Judge has it.
Do you want me to take?
Oh, yeah, maybe the judge got it.
Because you're supposed to get back to me for the okay?
All right, so we'll leave all this stuff.
Well, you know what, maybe they have a cart that they bring in for the court. They put it on the, we have a cart and they have their own.
Tell the judge that I'm not happy.
I know, the mayor's gavel.
Taking the mayor's gavel.
Thank you.
By the way, I wrote down my You can make all the drinking games of the farmer's market, but I think
Yes.
when Tom Beachar misses.
Nice.
That's a challenge.
That's another one?
Really?
That's a whole bottle.
That was,
Talk about it.
that was mentioned several times, wasn't it?
Usually it's on himself as chairman or commissioner.
Later, she said, that's not how it works. This is how HOA.
I think you might bring
Thank you,
speaking.
guys.
Association. And so she,
Because it doesn't talk in town.
So she-
Grab that, thank you.
This is hearsay. So
But it's pretty close.
and,
It doesn't
yeah, she,
Cool.
Judy, where's your shredding? Is that?
I can go on the whole thing.
Thinking that Dawn gave like really good secrets away, and that her best friend in the whole wide world had changed.
No. So she was hypersensitive,
Yes.
or she took it the wrong.
Yes.
Well, we can fix that, right?
Yes.